Monahan parked in front. Talks to Caulfield. Fire. Scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, guys. What did we think of that? Welcome to Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. Devin, right here. This is Recliner Sports, and this is Habs After Dark. We're here to talk about the Montreal Canadiens game. And just when you thought they were going to put two solid games together and that they were going to start making us feel great about this team, just when you thought that they might have figured it out and they might be maturing a little bit, and they go and they try to ruin it. Again, just when this team is, about to make you feel really, really great, again, I think we can feel happy. Again, I guess we should say 4-3 victory for Montreal over the Philadelphia Flyers tonight in Philadelphia. Second of a back-to-back, so they win 2 in a row, having defeated the St. Louis Blues on Saturday last night. And then tonight, the second game of a 2 games in 2 nights. They managed to pull off a victory, but as we'll talk about, they certainly didn't let us leave the game as Habs fans with a smile on our face. It's just frustrating. Just when you think this team is going to put it together, just when you think that this team is going to become, start, climbing that mountain, climbing that ladder to the next level, they can't do it. They had 2 pretty decent periods, 1 really good period, 1 pretty good period, and then the third period was just looking like, a boring period. Both teams had kind of, both teams were playing back-to-back. Both teams were playing second games in a back-to-back. Both teams looked like they just kind of, all right, Canadiens are up 4-1. Let's just ride out the rest of this game. And the Canadiens just decided that they just weren't going to finish the game. And they allowed 2 goals late, almost another to tie it up. They certainly didn't do a whole lot to slow Philadelphia down in the last minute or so when they had the empty net. But again, I guess, we can take some solace in a win. We can take some happiness in the fact that they did get back-to-back victories. But again, what looked like was going to be a real happy situation. And, I was looking forward to going live with you guys. I was looking forward to being really, really excited about a team that looked like they finally got their shit together and that they were able to put a couple of really nice performances in a row. And now they just kind of leave me feeling like, oh, Jesus, they're still not there yet. They're still not the team that we hope that they'll become. So let's have a look at the box score. We'll go through it real quick. Again, like I said, really good first period for Montreal. Suzuki gets on the board. First goal, 10:42 of the first period. Canadiens are having prolonged pressure in the zone, the Philadelphia zone. They're putting the heat on them. They're maintaining some pressure. Jaden Struble sets up a really, really nice play for Nick Suzuki in the high slot. He passes across the ice. Nick Suzuki's in the high slot. Nick Suzuki fires a rocket at the net. It gets saved. The puck ends up back on Struble's stick again at the point. He puts the puck on net. Suzuki's in front, fighting for the rebound, gets the rebound, and he puts the puck past the Philly goalie. 1-0 Montreal, 10:42 into the game. Just a lot of hard work. They looked really, really good early on in the game. They carried the play. They were the better team. Despite being on a back-to-back, they certainly looked like the better team. They looked like they were the one that showed up to do well. Two young teams. this is a game where, this is a game you expect them to win. Much like the game against Pittsburgh last week, it was a game that you expected them to win, and, against Pittsburgh, they just came out and laid a complete egg. Tonight, early on, they looked really good. Unfortunately, late in the first period, despite the Canadiens carrying the play, Philadelphia scores their first goal, 17:42 of the first period. It's Paling beats Logan Mailloux for the puck, ends up feeding Sanheim at the point. Sanheim he floats in a wrist shot. There's lots of traffic in front of the net. The puck actually deflects off Jake Evans, who's defending in front of the net, and it manages to get past Caden Primo. And despite having carried the play in the first period, in my view, they go into the intermission with a 1-1 tie. So let's go to the second period. Again, I thought they played okay in the second period as well. I thought they carried the play. They were outshot 8-7 in the second period. By the way, the shots in the first period were 11-9 for Montreal. High danger scoring chances were 4 each. And expected goals for were 1.63 for Montreal and 1.05 for the Flyers. The second period, a little bit more even. The shots were 8-7 for Montreal. The high danger scoring chances were 3-3. So again, they were even again, 2 periods in a row, total of 7-7. And the high danger scoring chances, Montreal was 1.29 and Philadelphia was 0.54. So again, Montreal carried most of the play in the second period, and certainly it showed up on the scoreboard finally. Like I said, they carried the play in the first period. It didn't really show up on the scoreboard, but it did in the second. 4:48 into the second period, Brendan Gallagher scores a goal. Puck bounces in off him. He's standing in the high slot. Big one-time shot from Logan Mailloux. Anderson feeds him at the point. Mailloux with a one-timer, big shot. And it bounces in off Brendan Gallagher's leg, and it's 2-1 for Montreal. About 8 minutes later, 12:46 on the power play, Cole Caulfield scores again, right? He's almost on a goal-per-game pace. He had a really good game tonight. Assisted by Nick Suzuki and Mike Matheson. Just a scrambly play. They're putting some pressure on the Flyers in the offensive zone. Like I said, it's on the power play. The puck kind of ends up high in the air. Cole Caulfield corrals it. He picks it up with his glove, drops it in front of him, and fires a wrist shot that kind of looked weird at first, but clearly beat the Philly goalie between the goalie's body and the post for a goal. A goal scorer's goal, like a really nice shot from Caulfield, and this is the kind of goal that you get when you're a goal scorer, when you're a big-time goal scorer. This is the kind of goal that you get. So at this point, it's 3-1 Montreal. Things are looking pretty good, and they look even better about 4 minutes later. The Canadiens score their fourth goal of the game to go up 4-1. This time it's Jake Evans with an assist to Brendan Gallagher. Jake Evans is behind the net. He feeds the puck around the boards. For whatever reason, Brendan Gallagher is at the point. He gets the puck, and he fires the slowest slap shot pass, perhaps in the history of the entire NHL. He breaks his stick, and the puck kind of, I don't know how it makes it all the way across from the right-hand side of the point all the way to the left-hand side of the net, where Jake Evans is standing, and he one-times the puck into the net, and the Philly goalie has no chance. But again, a bit of an ugly goal. A nice finish, but there was nothing all that spectacular about the Gallagher pass. So at the end of 2, the Canadiens are up 4-1. Things are looking pretty good. Everyone's happy. The Canadiens have essentially, I won't say they've dominated 2 periods, but they've certainly been the better team. And so we're heading into the third period, and the Canadiens are looking like, they're in control, they're in charge. The third period comes along, and, for the first 15 minutes of the third period, like I said a minute ago, it just, both teams were kind of over it a little bit, right? It looked like Philly had kind of said, well, this game's basically over. We're not going to win. We'll just, sort of ride it out. It's, second game, back-to-back night, whatever. And the Canadiens didn't do much better. The Canadiens didn't really show a lot of urgency in the third period either. it was just my notes I wrote, this is a nothing period, right? I put that in my notes. This is a nothing period. There's nothing going on here. Neither team really seems that interested in doing anything. They're just kind of riding the game out and, waiting to get on the bus to the airport to go back to Montreal. And, it's just kind of, nothing going on. The shots in the period are 10-5 by the end of it. Well, let's talk about what happened first. So 17:48 of the third period. The Canadiens are up 4-1. And Travis Sanheim scores his second goal of the game from Joel Farabee and Nicolas Deslauriers. And, Sanheim gets the puck around the point, and the Canadiens just decide that they're going to watch him skate around, right? He's just going to skate around with the puck, and they're just going to watch him and, back off him. They're going to put no pressure on him whatsoever, and they're going to let him do whatever he wants. And he skates across the blue line, and he sort of gets towards the top of the circle. And he just, floats another wrist shot at the net. And guess what? Caden Primo wasn't ready for it, and he lets it go in again. Caden Primo should have had this one. Should have been an easy save. Again, a wrist shot, not a strong wrist shot either, from the very high slot, and it just floats in over Caden Primo, and he doesn't look good on it. And I'll be honest with you, I was preparing my A-team, which we'll talk about later, and I wanted to put Caden Primo on the A-team, but I felt superstitious about putting his name on it until the game was over. I didn't want to jinx him by putting his name on the A-team before the game was over, so I was sitting there waiting to do it, and he was looking good and everything. I thought he had a really good game up until that point. Well, you'll see in a minute. I don't want to ruin the suspense, but maybe he doesn't make it onto the A-team as a result of that goal, and of also what happened about 30 seconds later. Konechny scores a goal from Tippett and Sanheim, 18-17 of the third period. Again, Montreal is completely, they're standing still in their own end. Tippett is allowed to enter the zone without any fight back, any pushback at all. He enters the zone, he skates in, he gets behind the Canadiens' net. He goes all the way in behind the Canadiens' net, and when he comes out from behind the net, he passes in front of the net to Travis Konechny, and Travis Konechny buries it. And again, Caden Primo looks like he's half asleep. Again, it was a bang play, but again, I mean, Caden Primo had to know that play was coming, and he just completely fell asleep. So the defense fell asleep, the goaltender fell asleep. 2 goals in 30 seconds, 2 goals in less than 30 seconds, it's right around 30 seconds. And guess what? The score's now 4-3. Philadelphia's right back in the game. There's a little under 2 minutes left. And, what went from, a pretty easy win and a dominating performance by the Montreal Canadiens now could be in trouble. And Philadelphia pulls their goalie, and they maintain pressure for the last, minute and 45 of the game. They're just all over Montreal. Montreal's beleaguered. They don't know what to do. They can't get the puck. When they do get the puck, they can't clear the puck. Christian Dvorak on 2 occasions had easy opportunities to get the puck out of the zone and just looked like he was playing with a spaghetti noodle instead of a hockey stick. And, again, this is what happens. This is why this team isn't quite ready. This is why this team still has a lot of work to be done. And, when we talk about the Canadiens having a chance to make the playoffs, yeah, maybe they do down the road, but this is the kind of thing that they need to work on. This is not, we talk about, playing a full game, playing a full 60-minute and a consistent effort. This is just it. You can't fall asleep in the NHL, even against a team like Philadelphia, which, relatively speaking, isn't a very good one. They'll make you pay. They'll make you pay if you're not paying attention. Mr. McPhilly says Flyers looked horrid. Well, yeah, they did for 2 periods, but the Canadiens looked horrid for 3 minutes of the third period, and it almost cost them the game. And you can't do that. That's not what championship teams do. And that's why this team isn't a championship team. It's why they still have a lot of work to do, and it's why they are not quite ready for prime time, right? So let's move on from there. Again, let's talk about what do we talk? Final shots for the game were 26-24 for Philadelphia. So again, despite dominating the game, except for the last 3 minutes of the game, they end up getting outshot. High danger shot, scoring chances. The final ends up being 12-7. in favor of Philadelphia, with them shutting the Canadiens out on high danger. Canadiens 0 high danger scoring chances in the third period, none. So even with that third, that last 3 minutes or so being the big problem, the Canadiens didn't show up for the entirety of that third period. Even before Philadelphia was able to put the pressure on and score those goals, Montreal wasn't doing anything. Expected goals for in the third period, 1.03 for Philadelphia and 0.18 for Montreal. 0.18. So again, underscoring that they did absolutely nothing, certainly nothing offensively in that third period. A dismal effort in the third period by Montreal. Again, it's just when you think that this team is going to make you smile and make you feel happy and make you feel excited, they kind of just, give you a little kick in the nuts, just to bring you back to reality, and you realize that, this is still a work in progress and there's still a lot of work to be done. So let's have a quick chat or a quick peek here now at the report card. We'll flip this over here. Again, as you guys may know, when the game ends, I basically start doing my work putting together these graphics, but I do sometimes get to work a little bit on the graphics beforehand. So, I go through and, after the second period, I put this report card together and I had 6 check marks. I was pretty confident that we were going to have 6 check marks in this game. Score 3 goals, no problem. We had that done after the second period. Allow 3 or fewer goals. It looked pretty easy. We only allowed 1 goal in the first 2 periods. I say we. The Canadiens only allowed 1 goal in the first 2 periods. It looked like it was going to be a sure thing. No problem. No worries whatsoever, right? Again, the 3 goals being, the kind of the standard. If you allow less than 240 goals in a season, there's a good chance you make the playoffs. If you score more than 240 goals in the regular season, there's a good chance you make the playoffs. If you do both of those things, you have a really good chance of making the playoffs. So that's the standard that we've set. That's why I look at 3 goals or less against and 3 goals or more for. They did manage to get the 3 goals for, and they did eventually manage the 3 goals or less, despite their best efforts to screw that up. They did succeed, in allowing fewer than 3 goals, or allowing 3 or fewer goals and scoring 3 or more with the 4-3 final. Special teams, again, I think we can look positively on the special teams here. Let's see this for a second here. We had 1 for 2 on the power play and perfect on the penalty kill. Killed 3 penalties and went 1 for 2 on the power play. So again, the power play continues to cruise along. I think the Canadiens are either in or close to the top 10 in the league now in power play, which is something that we're not really in the habit of being able to say as Montreal fans. And the penalty kill is one of the best in the league. I think they're right in the high 80s, almost to 90% in penalty kill. And I think they're definitely in the top 3. I'd have to look it up just to be sure of that. But again, I don't think there's any issue giving the team a check mark for special teams. Discipline, again, 2 penalties in the game. 2 or 3? 2? Nothing that I saw that was, a real serious issue of lack of discipline. I mean, the Suzuki penalty was kind of unfortunate and stupid, given that it took a power play away from the team. But again, I don't think there was any great, issues of discipline in the game. We will talk about the Jack Ice scenario at the beginning of the game. I don't think that was an issue of any lack of discipline on his part. Again, we'll talk about it again. Like I said, the referees in this league are just, atrocious. They don't have the first clue about how to manage a hockey game. And frankly, I don't even think they understand their own rules. They don't even understand the rules that they are mandated, that it's their job to apply. They just are, completely out to lunch, and they're making things up as they go. And in that particular scenario, they were making things up, and, they were ignoring the rules. And by making it up, they weren't making it up in a way that would hopefully calm things down a little bit. They were making it up in a way that potentially could have made things worse. Enjoyment, I'll give them a check mark for enjoyment because I think they looked like they were having a really good time for most of the game. There were smiles on their faces. After the Jake Evans goal, you saw everyone was laughing, a little bit about, Gallagher's pass and the fact that he broke his stick and, the slowest pass, maybe for one timer in the history of the league. What's up, Zachary? So I thought they enjoyed themselves. Obviously I don't think the last 3 minutes was very enjoyable, and maybe they were enjoying themselves a little bit too much, right? Maybe they're getting a little cocky there in the third period, and essentially going to sleep, for lack of a better term, in the third period. But again, I cannot give them a check mark for consistent effort and compete. I just can't. I wish I could, but I can't. That third period was atrocious. If they were playing against anybody else, if they were playing against the New York Rangers, they probably would have given up 5 or 6 goals in that third period. And you just can't do that. And again, the last 3 minutes was obviously a huge issue, but the entire period was a problem. And I just can't give them a check mark for consistent effort and compete. I was about to, even despite, the fact that they didn't really show up in the third period, the fact that, they were able to get through that period, or it looked like they were going to be able to get through that period unscathed and still, pull off the 4-1 victory. I was prepared to give them a check mark. But, with those 2 goals where they just literally fell asleep, it was like they were spectators. I did more than anybody on the Montreal Canadiens did on those last 2 goals. And I just can't give them a check mark for consistent effort and compete. It just wasn't there, and it's a problem, and it's something that needs to be addressed for this team. And it's an issue that, hey, what's up, Hunter? It's an issue that faces young teams. So again, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's something that's not unexpected when you have young and inexperienced team like the Montreal Canadiens. But it's something that you hope and you look for as something that they will eventually move past. And when they do start moving past those lapses, then that's when you kind of get a feeling that they might be ready for prime time. They might be ready to start making, some noise in the playoffs and being a team that other teams have to, think about. So that is the report card. Again, I was really hoping that we were going to have another perfect report card like we did last night, 2 perfect report cards in a row. It was going to be all exciting. I was going to be, big smile on my face, only positive, happy things to say. I was going to be that typical Montreal Canadiens fans who thinks that everything's awesome and everything's going great, because it was. But again, they kind of pulled the what's the proverb? Pulled the blanket out from under your feet, whatever it is, at the end of the game, and I just can't justify giving them another perfect report card. So let's get to the A-team. The A-team, guys, as you know if you've been here before, is essentially Recliner Sports' version of the 3 stars. Rather than have 3 stars, we pick 4 guys who we think were the best players on the ice, guys who put in the best effort. As I mentioned a minute ago, I had every intention of having Caden Primo on this list. I thought he played really, really well through Caden Primo played even well through the third period. While the rest of the team was kind of falling asleep, he was sort of holding down the fort. But again, I think he just kind of had a little snooze there in the last 3 minutes of the game and allowed those 2 goals, and I just couldn't justify giving him a spot on the A-team. So who we do have on the A-team, what's up, Hunter? We'll talk there in a minute, guys. Let's just finish the A-team here, and then we'll go to the comments for some questions and have some chat back and forth. Cole Caulfield, again, the goal is great. But, that alone doesn't get him onto the A-team. I think that his all-around play tonight, he skated well, he defended well, he moved the puck well. He had a number of chances, hit a post, got robbed on a really nice save early in the third period, which might have changed the whole complexity or the complexion of things had that goal gone in. And also, I think the post that he hit, him and Suzuki combined, I think in the first minute of the second period and the first minute of the third period for really, really good scoring chances. And unfortunately, he couldn't bury them. He also had a breakaway at one point that he wasn't able to finish. But again, I think the effort was there. He looked great. His skating looks really, really good, right? We all know about his shot and how, deadly his shot can be. But, he's getting around on the ice. Like he kind of, the commentators on RDS were talking about how he's sort of playing that role of the guy on the line who goes and digs the puck out along the boards. He's like a little jitterbug, kind of, what we would like to see a little bit more of from Alex Newhook, that kind of guy, like really good skater who can get in there, steal the puck, get it out, and feed it to, his teammates, whether it's Slavkovsky or Doc and Suzuki. So I thought he had a fantastic game. A number of chances. I don't know what his shot total was for the entire game. If you want to give me a second, I can tell you. He finished the game with 1 goal, 0 assists, 1 point, 16-22 played, and he had 4 shots on net. Suzuki had 5. So Suzuki's not on my list here. I think he very easily could have been as well. Number 2 on the A team is Mike Matheson, right? Mike Matheson has just been, I think he's probably been on the A team more than any player on the team. He's having a great year. Unfortunately, he gets a bit of a bum's rush from fans. I had a bit of an argument with somebody on my TikTok live I did earlier today. He described Mike Matheson as a guy who takes wrist shots at the net, soft wrist shots at the net when there's 8 guys in front of the net. And again, we've talked about this before. The issue with Matheson is that he gets painted with a certain brush because of, what he does on the power play, right? People, if he makes a couple of turnovers or, takes what some people might view as an ill-advised shot on the power play, all of a sudden people think he's a crappy player. But they don't consider the fact that he plays, 16, 17, 18 minutes a game on 5-on-5. And is probably the steadiest defenseman on the team. He kills penalties and is probably one of the best defensemen on the team at that. And on top of that, the power play's been incredible. Like everybody's like screaming and yelling that we need to have Lane Hutson on, the first unit of the power play. But the Canadiens' power play has been better than it's been in a decade. It's been really, really good, both PP1 and PP2. So, power play first unit has been awesome with Matheson on it, and the second unit has been awesome with Hutson on it. So I don't understand, the criticism of Matheson that's coming from, a certain sector of the Canadian fan base. I get the interest and the anxiousness and the, you wanting to see what Lane Hutson can do with the first unit. I understand all of that, but like, do you want to see Lane Hutson on the first power play, or do you want to see the power play be successful? Because the power play is successful right now. And so to me, I question the, what people are looking for and why they would suggest that Matheson should somehow come off of that first power play. And any criticism that he gets for what he does while he's on that first power play. And again, maybe I get, worked up sometimes about it. When people criticize Mike Matheson, it really gets to me because, he's done nothing but positive things for this team since he came to Montreal. And he's having a great start to this season, right? He plays a high-risk game. He's an offensive defenseman in a lot of ways who, also is pretty steady defensively, but because of his offensive game, he's a bit of a riverboat gambler sometimes, and sometimes he does make mistakes but again, you got to take the good with the bad, and it's been mostly good for Mike Matheson. I think he's been having he had a great game tonight again, and he's been having a great season, and I think that any of the criticism that's being labeled against him is just unwarranted and frankly a little bit crazy in my opinion. Brendan Gallagher, another great game tonight, finishes with, let's see here. Brendan Gallagher plays a total of 14 minutes and 57, which is really good for him. Again, a guy who's struggled with injuries and the long-term repercussions of those injuries, which, have affected him in a lot of ways. He had 19 shifts for 14.57. He had a goal and an assist, 1 shot on net. That's the goal. He had a block. Just another solid game from Gallagher. His skating seems to be better. He's been good since probably, the last 12 or 15 games of last season. 10 or 12, 15 games of last season. He's been great this year. Like I said, his skating looks better. He certainly looked slow for most of last year and maybe even a little bit at the beginning of this year. But again, his skating is back. He's getting scoring chances. He's still playing his normal game. Like, he's physical. He's a pest. You saw him tonight getting, Michkov riled up and managed to draw a penalty on Michkov. He's doing all the stuff that he used to do, but now, he's getting a little bit more of that, Brendan Gallagher that we used to know, who was, a dangerous offensive player out there. I don't think we'll ever get him back to where he was early on in his career. But again, the injuries to his hands, the injuries to his ankles, these are things that have slowed him down and affected his offensive abilities. But, he looks healthier than he's looked in a long time, and I thought he had another great game tonight. And he's looked great. Probably the last 3 or 4 games, I think he's been one of the better players on the team. And Jake Evans has probably been the steadiest guy on the team. So Jake Evans is member number 4 of tonight's A-team. Again, somebody said in the live last night, Jake Evans for the Selke Award. And, I haven't been following every other team in the league to speak intelligently about what other guys have been doing. But, the Selke Award was made for guys like Jake Evans. That's what the award was initially made to be for. It wasn't made for Austin Matthews. It wasn't made for Mitch Marner. It wasn't made for these guys who score 60, 70, 80 points or more, but also are steady, good defensive forwards or two-way forwards. The award is for the best defensive forward in the league. And that's the game that Jake Evans is playing right now, right? He's playing that game. He's hard to play against. He's deadly on the penalty kill. Every game, there's a shift where you can remember and you point back and you look at it and say, that was a great shift by Jake Evans. Like, he either, gets in on the forecheck, or, he anticipates a pass and breaks up the play and gets a clear, or, he kills time in the other team's end. Josh Anderson's been doing that quite a bit this year too, quite impressively. But every game Jake Evans has been doing all that stuff. And guess what? He's getting some offense too, he's giving us some offensive production. Tonight, Jake Evans, a goal, again, back-to-back games with goals, 17 minutes played, for a guy who probably is a fourth liner, a guy who I would happily have as a fourth liner on the Montreal Canadiens for the next, 10, 12 years. I would love to see that. 17 minutes, 23 shifts, just a really spectacular game again for Jake Evans. So, he's playing that defensive role. He's shutting guys down. He's no fun to play against. I can guarantee you that nobody likes playing against him. And he's even contributing to a degree on the offensive side of things. So Montreal Canadiens win 4-3, a bit of a disaster at the end of the game, a bit of a scare with the team giving up 2 goals late and then sort of dealing with a bunch of pressure for the last minute and a half of the game with the Philly net empty. Philly had a lot of chances. The puck could very easily have gone in the net, and the Flyers could have, sent that game to overtime. And God knows what would have happened if, what the Canadiens like to do when it comes to overtime and losing 1-goal game. So again, they managed to pull it off. It wasn't pretty, but they did it. I want to talk about the Arbor Jackeye situation. I guess it's not even really the Arbor Jackeye situation. It's, the situation. First period, for those of you who watched the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. For those of you who didn't, I'll give you a brief synopsis, a brief review. Kirby Dach gets rid of the puck, and he's kind of not really paying attention that much in the neutral zone. Sean Couturier comes across and decides that he's going to try and hit him. It's kind of an awkward hit. The timing's off by Couturier. It's not that great. It's one of those ones where he kind of glanced Dach. I don't know that he caught Dach in the head. I don't think he did, but it was very close to that. It looked bad. It turned out not to be that bad. Dach was fine, but it's one of those hits where, you kind of clip a guy and you clip a guy who doesn't know it's coming and it looks really, really bad. Couturier certainly knows better. I don't know what he was doing. But again, it probably deserved a penalty, if even just like an interference penalty. Of course, the referees don't call it. They let it go. If they'd called it, all the rest of this wouldn't even have happened. It just would have all ended, and there would have been no issue, no problem. Anyways, Couturier, kind of skates away, ends up in the Canadian zone. And Arbor Xhekaj, he sees what happens. Obviously it looks worse than it is. He assumes the worst, and he goes to Couturier, and he grabs a hold of him, keeps his gloves on, doesn't drop his gloves, doesn't sucker punch, doesn't jump him. He gives Couturier every opportunity to, do whatever. And, he doesn't certainly take advantage of the situation. He doesn't start early. He doesn't do anything like that. He and Couturier have a couple words. Couturier says something back to Xhekaj, presumably, okay, let's do this. They both start backing away from each other, and they're about to go. And out of nowhere, Nick Seeler jumps on Arbor Xhekaj's back. He jumps on Arbor Xhekaj's back and wrestles him to the ground. So, again, do I think that Arbor Xhekaj should be fighting Sean Couturier? Probably not. I don't think that's the right move. And again, I think Xhekaj needs to work on what it means to be an enforcer in 2024 and how he can most effectively play that role. I don't think he needs to fight Sean Couturier in that situation. One, I don't think the hit was that bad. Two, it's Sean Couturier. There's no sense in fighting him, quite frankly. Especially if you're Arbor Xhekaj. I mean, I don't think that's an even matchup. I don't think it's fair, and I agree with all that. But at the same time, he went and grabbed hold of Couturier. Couturier, he didn't jump him, he didn't force him into anything. Couturier did kind of look at the referee and shrug his shoulders at the referee and say, like, why do I have to do this? But I don't know. Again, he did willingly drop his gloves, and they were about to fight, and Nick Seeler jumped him from behind. And the only penalty goes to Arbor Xhekaj. Arbor Xhekaj gets an unsportsmanlike conduct call, and he's the only one who gets a penalty. So Couturier drops his gloves willingly. In fact, he drops his gloves before Xhekaj does. They're both, willing combatants. The fight never really starts. Nobody throws any punches. But Nick Seeler ends the fight by jumping on Xhekaj's back. So, how does Nick Seeler not get a penalty there? I mean, I get what he was doing. He's protecting Couturier, and I get that. I understand that, and maybe he has to do that. But how does he not get a penalty? I mean, he technically, by the letter of the law, he needs to be thrown out of the game. He's the third man into a fight. That's a no-brainer. That's a no discussion. That's a no discussion ejection. You're gone. There's no debating it. It's like leaving the bench. It's like shooting the puck over the glass. These are not judgment calls. These are clear-cut calls. But for whatever reason, these referees decided to try and make something up, and they tried to fit the situation into the narrative that they thought what was going on. And I think one of the issues that we have to look at as Canadiens fans here is that Xhekaj probably has a reputation in the league now. The referees are treating Arbor Xhekaj differently because of who they think he is, and that probably has something to do with what went on in the preseason. With the Cedric Paré situation. And the Tim Stützle situation. He's kind of viewed in a certain way, and he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's a little bit. And again, it's just going to make things harder for him as far as learning how to play that enforcer role in the NHL. But again, it's just, the bottom line on that is, did the referees affect the game tonight? Probably not. But it's just, it's I don't understand how people can be paid to do such a specific job and be so bad at that specific job. They literally are terrible. And it's veteran referees, it's young they just don't get it. They don't know how to officiate a sporting event, and they don't seem to understand their own game. You can't just make up rules to fit what you want to see happen. And that's what they did in that scenario, right? They ignored a third man in, and they gave one guy an unsportsmanlike conduct. They literally, the famous, I can't remember the guy's name, the referee that got fired there a couple years ago. He's a bit of a donkey. He does a podcast with Jeremy Roenick where he got caught on a hot mic talking about how, I have to give a penalty to the other team now. I've given 3 penalties to one team. Now I got to make sure that I even things up. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. But that's the attitude, and that's the way these referees ref games. They don't ref according to the rules. They ref according to, this is how I want to see the game go. And they think that they're managing the game. They think that this is game management, right? They think these referees tonight thought that they were managing the game by penalizing Arbor Jackeye and letting Nick Seeler away with what he did. And I mean, at the end of the day, it didn't really turn into anything, but it very well could have. They first of all, they blew the call on Couturier in the first place, but what would have happened if Jackeye had seen Seeler coming from behind and decided that he was going to beat the shit out of him? What if Jackeye decided that, when his 2-minute penalty was up, he was going to chase Seeler around the ice and do something there? So again, I mean, there's a lot of issues that come up in that. I think Jackeye does need some work on how to play that enforcer role. I think the Canadiens could really benefit by giving some real thought to revolutionizing the role of enforcer. I've talked about this in the past, and some of you agree with me and some of you don't. But I think that Jackeye is a good hockey player. He's not just an enforcer, and I think that he can, if they're smart about it and they put thought into that role instead of just blindly following what hockey old heads think it means to be an enforcer in the NHL. I think that they really could maximize his contributions to this team. But so all that to say that the refs suck. It was, again, another horrible example of them just not knowing what they're doing. And I invite you to go and have a look at it and, make your own opinion and see what you thought of it. So anyways, that's going to be just about it. We've gone through the A-team. We've gone through the box score. We've gone through the report card. I see that we've got, who do we have in the chat right now? How do I do this? I know there's a way for me to check who's in the chat. I just need to figure it out. Top chat, what does that mean? No, I don't want the top chat. I want the live chat. I want to go here. Nope, I don't want to go there. I want to go here, I think. Participants. Right now we have just myself and Hunter are the only people left. I know we had Zach was in here earlier. Hunter has been in here for a while. We also had Mr. MC Philly, who I think is Hexy, but I'm not sure. So let me go back and look at the question. Flyers look horrid. Primo always plays well in Philly. Primo plays better in Philly. I mean, that's a place that he's got a connection to. His father played there for years. His father was a well-known Philadelphia Flyer, so I suspect he does show up there. I thought he played well for most of the game tonight, but again, I thought he just kind of took a little bit of a nap at the end of the game. Zachary is just enjoying the live. Thank you, Zachary. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Maybe you're coming back. Give Flyers credit. This is from Hunter. They made a push to tie the game or try to. Absolutely. Yeah. You have to give the Flyers credit. I mean, as much as I, dump on the Canadiens for falling asleep, the Flyers took advantage of it, and, that's what good hockey teams do. You get presented with an opportunity, and you take advantage of it, and that's what the Flyers did. Unfortunately, they only took advantage of it so far, and the Canadiens got lucky and didn't have to, go to overtime and potentially lose the game. But, you do have to give the Flyers some credit. But, again, I think that the Canadiens certainly didn't do much to help themselves, and they certainly made things they certainly presented the opportunity to the Flyers when they certainly could have just shut the door on them and ended the game. So I guess, it takes two to tangle, or two to tango. But, yeah, I guess we can give some credit to the Flyers. Caulfield, 8 goals, impressive start. Absolutely. Where does he stand in the let's see where he is amongst goal scorers in the league right now. Have they updated things here? Right now, he is tied for second in the NHL. So Nico Hischier has scored 9 goals so far this year for the New Jersey Devils. I would expect that Hischier has played more games because the Devils played those 2 games in Europe at the beginning of the season. So He would have had 9 goals in fewer games than Caulfield, and Kucherov and Caulfield are both tied with 8 goals. Who else? Any points? Any Canadians in the top 10 in points? We do not. Our top scoring player for Montreal is going to be, stand by, Nick Suzuki with 11 points in 9 games, which puts him in a tie for 15th in the NHL in points. So let's get back to the questions. Let's go back here. He's hard to play against, says Zachary. I think, Zachary, you were referring to when I was talking about Jake Evans. And yes, I agree with you. He's very hard to play against. He's been really good this year. As I said when we were talking about the A-team, Arbor has a low-key really good shot when he shoots. Yeah. He has the hardest shot in the NHL, Hunter. I don't think there's anything low-key about it. You may not know this because you're not a Canadiens fan, but Canadiens fans know that at the Canadiens, they do that public practice they do every year, and they do a bit of a skills competition at the end. Arbor Jacki took a slap shot that I believe was clocked at 107 point something miles per hour. So I think that would put him in the mix for hardest slap shot in the NHL by a good bit. He had a really hard shot in last night's game. He let it fly. He doesn't let it go very often, and he needs to. But he also, when you have a big slap shot like that, usually you have a pretty good, wrist shot and a good snap shot and all that stuff too. So, he needs to use his shot more often, I think. I think it's a really big weapon for him, and he should try to get it out there a little bit more. Oh, you were talking about Matheson. Okay. Yeah, I think Matheson's hard to play against as well. He's a fantastic skater. I think I don't think that decision-making is his best attribute. That's not to say he's bad at it. I just don't think it's his best attribute. He does make some strange decisions at times on the ice as far as, when he shoots and, when he passes and things like that. But because he's such a great skater, he kind of buys himself a little bit more time. So, he kind of makes up for that, that extra half second it takes him sometimes to make the right decision. Lane Hudson would be kind of the opposite of that. Lane Hudson's brain works really, really quickly. If you watch him out there, he makes decisions and boom, he executes right away. He makes good decisions most of the time. So, would you consider Nick Suzuki a true number one center right now, or is he still developing into becoming a true number one center? I do think he's a number one center. I don't think there's much debate about that anymore. Last year he was essentially a point per game guy, just slightly under a point per game. He's evolved into being one of the better defensive or better two-way forwards in the league. He's certainly capable of more points. If you're an 80-something point guy in the NHL, and you're that good defensively, and you can drive one of the better lines, production-wise, so one of the better producing lines in the league, I think you're a first-line centerman. Is he a Nathan McKinnon? Is he a Connor McDavid? Is he one of those elite, Sidney Crosby, Connor Bedard? Is he in that realm? No, I don't think he is. But I think he's definitely a number one center. If you're talking about, is he in the top 32 centers in the NHL? He 100% is. He's probably in the top, 12 or 15. In a perfect world, if you don't have that, McKinnon, McDavid type centerman, you ideally have a really strong second center as well, which is, kind of what you hope that, Kirby Dach turns into. If Kirby Dach can be a 75 or 80 point guy, stay healthy and be a 75 or 80 point guy, when you've got a 1A and a 1B like that, then, you kind of, in a way, you kind of would rather have that than have, one guy as your Austin Matthews or your Connor McDavid, who's going to, be, way up here. You're spreading things out a little bit more. Would you rather have one guy who gets 120 points, or would you rather have two guys who get 80 points? is kind of, I guess it depends on what, who your second line guy is with the 120-point guy, but you take my point. So, again, Demidov may turn out to be a centerman too, right? Apparently he's very comfortable playing center. He hasn't done it yet in the KHL so far this year, not very often anyway. But, apparently he has no problem playing center. So maybe they look at Demidov being a centerman. Michael Hage, right, is lighting things up in Michigan right now. He's a centerman. Is he going to be, a guy who can be that second line center? So I think all of these things are, remain to be seen. And, these will all develop over time as, time passes and these prospects come along, and, we'll see. But again, getting back to the original question, I don't think there's any debate that Nick Suzuki's a number one center in the NHL. Like, is he elite? Is he one of the 5 or 6 elite centermen in the NHL? No, but I think he's on the next tier. 100% he's on the next tier. Is Suzuki being used on the PK? He does play on the PK. Yeah, he does. Yeah, I mean, again, in a perfect world, you wouldn't need him on the PK, just because, you want to try and limit his ice time. Same with a guy like Mike Matheson, right? Mike Matheson is taking a regular shift on the PK and on the power play, which is kind of why you're looking at his numbers where he's playing, 24, 25, 26 minutes a game. Like tonight, he finished the game with, let's see here, let's do this, 24 minutes and 58 seconds of ice time, right? So, Lane Hudson with 21 minutes and 42 seconds, and David Savard with 22:15. But Matheson is playing, it's a regular occurrence for him to be, clocking 24, 25, 26 minutes in a game. Matthews under Berube is being used in the PK role. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I don't think that Austin Matthews is as good defensively as a lot of Toronto Maple Leafs fans want to make him out to be. I think he's a very, very good, responsible two-way forward. And I think playing him on the PK makes a lot of sense for Toronto. And I think it also makes sense for Matthews. It'll develop his game. It gives him another opportunity to be on the ice. It gives him another opportunity to get engaged in the game. And yeah, I think it's a smart move. Mitch Marner's kind of in the same boat, right? Again, not as good defensively as I think that a lot of people would like to make him out to be, particularly, the Toronto media and Toronto fan base. But again, a very solid two-way forward who, certainly can play on the should, I don't see any issue with those guys being, penalty killers. So you're seeing more and more in the NHL teams, top players are being used on the PK. Well, I mean, it depends on the player, right? I mean, if the player has the ability to be there, I mean, if you can play that role, I mean, it's a very, in a lot of ways, it's a very technical role, but if you've got quick feet and you've got good skills, and a good, you know how to use your stick and you know how to do, these are skills that you are going to translate very well to penalty killing. I remember Jonathan Drouin, right? Not really known as a penalty killer in the NHL. But I recall when he played in junior hockey that he was a really, really good defensive player in a lot of ways because he had a really, really active stick. He had a good stick and he had great hand-eye coordination. And he would, steal pucks in the neutral zone all the time. And I think that's kind of what you see from Mitch Marner. And it's kind of why people overestimate him as a defensive player because those numbers show up on the stat sheet, right? You see those numbers on the stat sheet. You see those takeaways. And you see how good he is. And he's quick, right? He can get in your face and he can be on you and he can force you to make turnovers. So anyways, that's kind of, that's why, I see that, you can have your top players. So the skills that make you a good offensive producer also translate to penalty killing in a lot of ways, whether it's the skating or, the hand-eye coordination or whether it's, knowing how to use your stick. Where do you realistically think the Habs PP will be this season? Top 10, 15 range? It's hard to say. I mean, again, the Canadiens power play is playing better than it has in a very long time. I think they have the personnel for a good power play. I mean, Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Matheson, Hudson, Doc, Newhook. These are all good power play guys. They know how to play offensively. They're skilled. It's all about whether or not they can put a system in place that works for them, and whether they can execute. And so far they're executing. So far they're doing quite well. Whether it's the first power play unit or the second power play unit. And the power play is only going to get better if and when Patrick Laine comes back. That'll improve. Obviously, Slavkovsky being out once he comes, like these things will, like the people who are calling for changes to the power play in Montreal are just like, they're just not making sense. Like, oh, we need to get Matheson off the first power play and get Hudson there. Well, I get it. I would love to see Hudson with the first power play unit too, but it's not broken. Why are we trying to fix it? It's not broken, right? The first power play unit is doing great, and the second power play unit's doing great. They're both scoring goals. They're both contributing, in their current form. So why would the Canadiens be very interested in changing that? Right? Matheson is having success on the first power play unit, and Hudson is having success on the second power play unit. Could you argue that, putting Hudson on the first unit would be even better? Yeah, maybe, but you haven't seen it, so you don't know. So again, I don't understand this desire. I get it. We all want to see Lane Hudson do crazy things. We all want to see Hudson be, the guy that everybody, has been waiting for so long, and we've been waiting on him, and we see what he's capable of doing, on 5-on-5, and we see what he's capable of doing on the second power play unit. We want to see but it's, the Canadiens' power play right now is standing at, let me tell you in 1 second, the Canadiens' power play is power play percentage. The Canadiens stand in 8th place in the entire league at 25.8%. Right? So they've got the 8th best power play in the NHL, and the 60%ers of the Montreal Canadiens fans, the casual Canadiens fans, all want Lane Hudson to switch spots with Mike Matheson. I don't get it. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. By the way, the Canadiens' penalty kill is at 90.3, which puts them at 3rd place in the NHL. So special teams, for the first time in a long time, are not an issue for Montreal. So let's enjoy it. Hopefully it lasts. Okay, but again, Hunter, why? Like, he doesn't, like, maybe he is. Is he capable of being a power play one guy? Yeah, for sure. But again, wouldn't you rather have 2 strong power plays? Like, it's this whole debate about whether, you should be on the first line or the second line, right? Oh, you're not good enough to be on the first line, so we're going to put you on the second line. Well, isn't it nice to have 2 good lines, 2 good production lines? Your top 6, you've got 2 equally dangerous, equally productive lines. Like, I don't think that it's an insult to put Lane Hudson on the second power play. I don't think it's an indication that the coaching staff thinks that he's not good enough, or that he's inferior to Matheson, or that he's not as good as the guys who are on the first power play unit. Like, I think that's an old school mentality of looking at it. Right now, the Canadiens have one of the best power plays. We just saw they're the 8th best power play in the league, and that's in part because they have 2 units that can score goals. Right? The other team can't just focus in on the one unit and shut that unit down, because they know that, as soon as this unit's done, another one's going to come out there. So they, as far as putting stress on their penalty killers, and you can't just have 4 good penalty killers if you play against the Montreal Canadiens. You need to have 8, because, as soon as Matheson and the first unit come off the ice, Hudson and the second unit are going to come on the ice, and they can score too. And so if you, waste your best penalty killers, defending against the first unit, well, Lane Hudson's going to take advantage of your second round of penalty killers. So Leafs power play is 3 for 30 to begin the season. Yeah, well, it just goes to show you that, weird things can happen in hockey. The Canadiens didn't score a single goal on the power play in the entire preseason. Not one. Right? And they've had one of the worst power plays in the league for at least 3 or 4 seasons now. But for whatever reason, they've figured something out. And it's working. So, again, you just hope that continues. And I think confidence and momentum are a big thing when it comes to the power play. So you hope that they can just continue to roll with that. What do you think, Hunter? Are we just about done here? I think it's just you and I in the live. I think Zach has left. Yes. So Zach has left. It's just you and I. We're coming up. It's after midnight now. So I think I'm going to end the live. I'm going to do my closing here. Canadiens with a 4-3 victory over the Philadelphia Flyers. Back-to-back wins on back-to-back nights. Again, something that hasn't happened often for the Montreal Canadiens in recent times. So I guess we can look positively on that. Where are we in the standings now? Let's have a look at the standings. The Canadiens now currently have moved ahead of the Bruins and the Senators. The Canadiens have they have 9 points. So they're tied with Boston, 1 point ahead of the Senators, who have 2 games in hand. So there's still a lot of work to be done. The Canadiens are at 500. They've got 27 goals for, 33 against, for a differential of -6. Like we've talked about, the power play looks good. The penalty kill looks good. But these back-to-back wins have made a difference. We can think positively about the team going forward. Unfortunately, they gave us a little bit of a fart cup in the nose there in the last 3 minutes of the game. One of those cup of farts to send us away with a bit of a, a bit of a bad feeling at the end of the game. Unfortunately, we can't leave feeling completely positive because of the last 3 minutes of the game and because of the third period. But at the end of the day, it's a win. A win's a win. It counts in the win column. They allowed 3 or fewer goals. They scored 3 or more. So those are positives as well. Next game will be, let's see, the schedule here for Montreal. What do we have coming up? The Montreal Canadiens' next game will be on the 29th. So on Tuesday, they will play the Kraken. The Kraken apparently are already in Montreal. They'll be practicing in Montreal tomorrow morning, 7 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Atlantic. We will go live after the game, as always, with Habs After Dark. We look forward to seeing you there. But again, another win by the Canadiens, 4-3. It was a tight one. It was ugly at the end, but they pull off another win. 2 wins in a row. Thank you for coming. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the interaction. I appreciate the comments. Hunter, Jeevan, welcome in. Unfortunately, we're ending things here. Jeevan, you're a little bit late, but thank you to Zachary. Thank you to Hunter. Thank you to Mr. McPhilly, who I believe is also known as Hexy. Thank you for your contributions, and thank you for coming in. If you're watching this on a replay, please tap the subscription button and the notification bell. Make sure you give us a follow. We're just starting out here. We're hoping to grow this community. We're also on TikTok. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Discord if you want to follow us over there. Everything is under the same name, Recliner Sports. Give us a follow. And finally, check out our new website, reclinersports.ca. You can check out our written content there. We do some written articles, and we also post the replays of the Habs After Dark lives. Thank you again, everybody. I appreciate all of your support and your participation in tonight's live. We will see you in the next one on Tuesday evening, 15 minutes after the final horn. And see you next time. Peace out.